Boom, coming in hot, Chinch, on a Tuesday, brother. Looking forward to this one.
Dude, I am so psyched. Remember, dude, that blackout in Pittsburgh a few years ago when, we were watching Cueto on a mound, everything was crazy? I think we're pretty close to getting back to that, dude.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yes.
We got the perfect guy to ask what's going on out there in Pittsburgh right now. The manager of the first place Buccos right now, and a great dear friend of mine, Derek Shelton. Shelty, what's up, brother, man? Thanks for coming on with us today, man.
Case, excited to be here today, man. This fires me up.
So good, babe. Before we get into some baseball, dude, I wore this. People don't know, but I wore this shirt in honor of you because we're both big Pearl Jam guys. We're friends of the band. You guys were just out in Seattle, too. Did you get to see George? Did you get to see Ed or anything?
No, George and Ed left the morning we were there. I will say George Webb, who's a friend of both of ours, hooked it up big time. I got a bunch of gear. I got some really cool memorabilia stuff, and he takes care of us, man. I mean, this goes back. I mean, you and I have seen a Pearl Jam concert together. Yeah,
in Tampa, dude. You, me, and Kayafa a few years back, dude. That was a great show.
Yeah,
great show.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
Yeah, and tell us about the guitar in the background there, the nice Bucco guitar.
Yeah, so that's my prized possession. I got it. George sent it to me 2 Christmases ago, and it's signed by Eddie and the band in total Eddie fashion. It's got the Ohana drawing on it. It's got Go Bucks, and it's got a 21 Forever on the back circled because Eddie spends a lot of time at the museum, just like you and I do.
Yeah.
The thing that really came across is he sent it to me like December 20th in a Fender box, and all over it said "Do not open till Christmas." So my youngest Gianna was like, "No, Dad, not till Christmas," knowing full well I know what's in it.
All right.
So so on the other side of my office, it's got the authentication with all the picks that Eddie has. The Pittsburgh one, there's a couple of Jordan ones in there because he's a Chicago guy. I'm a Chicago guy, so a couple Steeler ones. So it's pretty sick.
So cool. Did you wait till Christmas?
Yeah, I did. She wouldn't let me not. Gianna was like, straight went full on. It was in front of the Christmas tree. You are not opening it until we get there.
So great. Dude, in 2013, you'll love this story, and I'm sure you know it, but when they opened up in Pittsburgh, that the Lightning Bolt tour, Ed came in, the Pearl Jam came in on Monday. They opened up on Friday. I had Mazeroski, Steve Blass, I think Grilly stopped by, even Garrett Cole, a couple other guys stopped by. We had a nice dinner downstairs with Vedder, Jeff Ament, and Blass and Maz told stories the whole night, dude. It was incredible. And I had presented Ed with a Clemente helmet because he collects the skull cap. So I found this Clemente helmet. Dwayne helped me do it. And if you go back to that bootleg in 2013, bro, when they go to play Yellow Ledbetter, Ed, I get the chills telling Ed grabs that Clemente helmet, dude, from like 1970, puts it on, and before he gets going on Yellow Ledbetter, he says into the mic, you have to really listen to it, he says, Roberto Clemente. Dude, it was so cool. And no one knew that it was Clemente's helmet, but I did, and I was like, that is cool, man. So cool.
Yeah. He's such a baseball guy, man. Hearing that story gives me goosebumps.
Yeah.
It's just he's invested. The fact that Jose Cardinal's his favorite player. And this is not in any way degrading Jose Cardinal. Had a great career, and I grew up watching him play in Chicago. But he just loves baseball.
Yeah. Oh, he loves it. That's how I met him. Cardinal was my first base coach with the Reds. He comes in the locker room one day. I'm like, who's the guy with short blonde hair talking to Cardinal? They're like, that's Eddie Vedder. I'm like, what? I'm like, how's Cardinal this cool? I didn't know Cardinal was that cool.
That's awesome.
So great, dude. So, brother, it has been a pleasure, man. Obviously, our history goes way, way back, 20 plus years in the game, and watching you become the manager of the Buccos a couple of years, man, I couldn't be more excited for you, knowing how great of a baseball mind you are, knowing the years that you spent as a hitting coach and a bench coach and the old school type of baseball. That's what I think. When I think Derek Shelton, dude, I think old school baseball. And then Chinch, my producer, pulled up a stat, which is incredible, that the Buccos in 2023, first in the big leagues in triples. The Buccos in 2023, 14 sack bunts, first in the big leagues, 20 sack flies, fifth in Major League Baseball, 67 stolen bases, second in Major League Baseball. It just smells old school baseball. Can you talk to that a little bit, Shelton? Because that stuff seems like dinosaur stuff, like sack bunting. Like no one, hey, you just got to swing the bat. And I'm a big believer, just like you are. Like, no, you got to get runs across the board, however it takes. Can you just talk about your philosophy and you guys as an organization of some of the numbers I just read off there?
Well, I appreciate you saying that about the old school baseball guy, just because, like you said, you and I have known each other a long time and been in the game. I think the thing that we pride ourselves on here, especially in the major league level, is just playing to our personnel. I mean, I've been on teams. I was hitting coach in Cleveland on some teams that we just stood at the plate and banged with people, and we're trying to hit the ball out of the ballpark. We don't have that personnel. So when we went into the season, we're like, we're going to maximize as much as possible what we have. We need to run. We need to sack bunt. We need to hit and run. We need to make sure we get, as many runs across, however they get there. Right. Now, last night, I mean, we had 10 walks in a game. We were patient. That's fine. We also had we had a sacrifice fly. We had 2 sacrifice bunts. Any way we can get to win the game, ultimately at the end of the game, you want to be shaking hands. I really don't care how we get there.
Yeah, and going to that at bat last night, talk about the one at bat Cutch had. He fights battles, goes down, gets buzzed that first at bat, but he works that walk, makes it 3-2. Can you just talk about having him back in Pittsburgh? What has he meant to that to the club so far?
Well, I think organizationally and citywide, you know what he means. It's instantly when Cutch wants to come back here because he had been in our division, saw what we were doing, thought, all right, there's a good process here. We have a good club. I think the thing he brings to us is exactly what happened last night. We get down. When you get down, you try to hit your way back into the game, but he doesn't do that. I mean, this guy's chasing 2,000 hits. He's 3 away. He could be up there just swinging. The process of his at-bats are almost by osmosis run through our group of there's no panic. We take a walk. We take another walk. They walk in 2 runs last night because we stay patient. So I think the thing that he really brings to us is just that calmness within our lineup that we don't have to try to do too much. And when you see one of your peers do that, and then a guy, honestly, a lot of these guys grew up as the Pirates were Andrew McCutchen. Right. And when you walk down the halls at PNC, I mean, there's an MVP picture up. So when you get a guy that has been here and done that, it makes it a lot easier for the buy-in everywhere else.
Yeah, you could tell, man. You could tell there's a vibe when he's around, a vibe when he's at the dish. Even the fans, coming to their feet, it's pretty special. Another guy I want to touch on, talking about guys that are special. Brian Reynolds signing the biggest contract in Pittsburgh sports history, which is a big deal around here. But, why is he so special, man? And what did you like about him, in the organization being willing to sign him to that long-term deal?
Well, I think first and foremost, there has to be willingness on both sides. And, there's a business side to it. And then the trade request came out. Brian wanted to be here the entire time. So you put aside the business, and ultimately it came down to Brian deciding hey, I want to be part of this. I see what's going on here. I want to be a Pirate. I want to be in Pittsburgh. And that's really important, especially with a guy that has a young family, because his kids are going to, essentially grow up here. And then on the second side, it takes commitment from the baseball ops and from, Bob Nutting to say, this is a guy we're going to invest in. I mean, it's a lot of money for our market. And I think the willingness to do it on both sides was really important. And what makes Brian Reynolds stand out is, number one, he's a really good player. He's a good hitter. He can play multiple outfield positions, obviously switch hitter, but the calmness about him, whether it's good, bad, indifferent, he's the same guy every day. And when you have a guy that you're going to build around and is going to be a cornerstone, you have to have that comfort there. And I think that's what he brings every day.
I love that, man. I love that. Talk about one of the guys that's not really, not really a young guy anymore because he's been there a few years, but I feel like everyone in Pittsburgh's kind of waiting for him to take the jump offensively. We already know he's a Gold Glove third baseman, but Brian Hayes, has a couple home runs lately. He shows flashes of power. Can you, Shelton, you being a, old school hitting coach and being one of the best in the game at the time, do you think Brian can develop, into a power guy? Maybe not necessarily a home run guy, but a doubles guy where you get an OPS, north of 800.
Yeah, I think so. And I appreciate the way you're saying that, because I think everybody thinks as a power guys is you have to hit homers. You don't.
Right.
I was
a doubles guy with,
and that's what you have to, And Key actually runs better than you. I know that's going to shock a lot of people.
Most people did, Shelton.
but I think the thing that really stands out to me is, number one, this is his second year with Andy Haynes. That's important when you develop that relationship with the hitting coach. And then we had an off day in San Francisco during this last road trip, and it was an off day for him. He wanted to come in and hit early. He came in, he hit early. I think they really unlocked some things because it was a day he knew he wasn't going to play, so he had a freedom to take as much as he wanted. And since that day, we're starting to see the timing better. We're starting to see the moves cleaner. We're starting to see the ball in the air. You know, this last homestand, he's hit some homers and hit the ball. That started in San Francisco. You know, he hit 3 or 4 balls right on the screws that didn't get caught. And to Key's credit, because I know as a hitting coach, as soon as you have that success and guys don't get results, they're like, hey, man, I'm not doing this.
Forget it.
Stayed with it. And Andy stayed with him, and now we're starting to see the results of it. And that's really important because we have to remember this is a young kid, and we get enamored because he is one of the best defenders I've ever seen. And everybody expects it. Okay, it's just going to come. It doesn't come that fast. Sometimes it takes a little longer for the offense.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And defensively, man, you know, if his offense doesn't go to the next level, he's worth every penny with how he plays defense at the corner there, and, you know, obviously saving runs. Hey, stay there really quick, if you don't mind, on Andy Haynes, because I know he's got a great reputation in the game for being a great hitting coach. He was over there in Milwaukee too. Let's talk about what he's brought, you know, to this team, because it seems like you guys came out the gates firing, you know, a little bit up and down, but for most part, you go down that line, if you're like, wow, a lot of these guys are having really good years. You know, what's the philosophy there in Pittsburgh with Andy Haynes and your approach at the plate?
Well, I think the biggest philosophy is as simple as it sounds, is getting the right pitch to hit. And the reason why that's important is when you have a lot of young players, they want to collect hits. You know, they want to go out and get as many hits as possible. And that's all well and good, but it's really hard to do that. So if we focus on the process of what we're doing and make sure we're ready to hit the fastball all the time, that's really important. And then the second part of it, and even going back to the key thing is a little bit, is your first year as a hitting coach in a new organization. I mean, you're swimming upstream the whole time because, number one, you're learning a group. And more importantly, you're trying to develop trust within a group. And trust just doesn't automatically come as a hitter like, all right, I'm going to let this guy dictate what I'm going to do in my career. It doesn't have to do that. Andy does a really good job of developing relationships. And I think we're seeing that in the second year where a lot of this trust has been developed. A perfect example of this is going back to Brian Reynolds. Brian Reynolds requested a trade this offseason, which, okay, that's a business move, whatever. Right. Every day in the offseason, he hit with Andy Haynes. Every single day. So, like, this is commitment by the player, by the coach, you know, that like, hey, we're building something, you know, good here. So, and that, I think that's really what's happened with Andy this second year.
But having veterans like Santana and like McCutcheon, who about 5 or 6 years ago, like, there was that kind of thing like, oh, it's got to be under 30, this and that. Having those two guys there, are you seeing the other guys watch them prep every day and watch them go about their business in batting practice and in the cages and stuff like that? Do you think that has had a kind of like a this and that exponential like effect on the young guys?
Yeah, 100%. I think that's a great point. And when you bring in veteran players and you bring in guys that are peers, sometimes the hitting coach's message goes through those guys because it's easier listening. And I think one of the things that we highlighted this offseason is we have a very young Latino group, and we wanted a stronger Latino veteran position player. Carlos Santana was the guy we targeted. I mean, he's everywhere he's been a leader. People rave about him. He can still play defensively. He's playing better than he has at any point in his career. So when you bring in different factors there, we brought in Rich Hill. Hedges has been extremely impactful. Like, and I give Ben and our baseball ops groups credit because this is the first year we've done that. The first 3 years, okay, we have a process we're bringing in. This is the year, okay, we're going to bring in to help our young guys and add. And honestly, that takes a ton off myself and our coaches because of the fact that a lot of those conversations in the past few years we were having, now the veteran guys are having.
Shelton, I always thought that because I think there was a trend in these last few years. Hey, just bring up the young guys, man. Make it all young. And I'm like, wow. I remember coming up with the Reds. Like, I learned from Barry Larkin. I learned from Greg Vaughn. I learned from these veteran guys. Like, I wouldn't have been the player I was without some of these 30-plus-year-old players. And, I think that it was starting to trend at, a lot of young guys. And I think sometimes it puts more pressure on the manager because, of the players, the police, the clubhouse. So you definitely are seeing that more where, like, oh, man, the players are policing the clubhouse more if you have that veteran presence.
100%, and I think with, like you said, Case, with young players the last few years, it was me doing it. And, when you're the manager, there's still that regardless of how much you communicate or how trust, you're still the manager. You're still the guy writing their name in the lineup card. When you put veteran guys in there, it makes it a lot easier for that to be seamless. And some things they handle without anybody even knowing, which is extremely, important. And I think that's the group of guys that we wanted to add into our young group. And then going back to your first point is a lot of people think, okay, prospects come to the big leagues and it's easy.
Right.
Big leagues is really, really hard. And the game will show you that it's hard. I mean, we have perfect proof in the pudding with the guy that's thrown tonight, Mitch Keller. Mitch Keller was a super prospect, came to the big league, struggled. Everybody wondered, what happened? Well, you have to make adjustments. You have to learn. You have to grow. To Mitch's credit, he has dominated the learning and growing part of it, and we're seeing that. But the big leagues is the highest level for a reason, and guys just don't come here and dominate it.
Dude, you're segueing perfect into where I was going next with Mitch Keller. What has he done, man, to become that elite strikeout guy in the big leagues?
I think the first thing is, obviously last year, about mid-July, we went to the sinker. And he started using it with the four-seamer. But the biggest thing is just trusting the ability that he's a really good pitcher. There was some mechanical adjustments. There was some, pitch usage adjustments. The biggest adjustment that Mitch Keller has made is very honestly, he's grown up. He's going after you. And it started, it really resonated with me opening day in Cincinnati this year. He goes bases loaded, nobody out. Okay, to start the season after a dominant spring training.
Right.
He gets ground ball double play to score a run, fly ball to end the inning, and from there he goes. And I told him after the game, I said, last year you give up 4 in that inning. You maybe don't get through the second. And he gives us 6 strong. So it's that maturity and that belief of like, you know what? My stuff's good enough. I'm going to go right at you, and you're going to have to beat me. And again, that takes time at the major league level, and I think we're seeing that maturation of Mitch Keller.
Yeah, wow. It's been impressive. I think when he first came up, I'm like, man, this guy's dancing around the zones so much. It was like pitch counts, 3-2. The leverage was on the other side, 2-0, 3-1, and not in his favor. And you're right. Now I see him throwing that two-seamer to lefties, like one of the toughest pitches to pull the trigger on, locking guys up. It's been really impressive to see what he's doing. On the other side, Shelty, lately, man, and pretty much the whole year, that bullpen that you have to go to, man, has been incredible. Touch on that a little bit. And one of the guys I want to touch on, obviously, is a Pittsburgher himself, David Bednar, who I was talking to D-Row at the WBC, and I was like, yeah, tell me about some of the guys, that you had out there in the pen. He goes, I was talking to Bednar about, being ready. He's like, don't ask me again if I'm ready, because I'm always ready. Is that what you get from this guy, dude? Like an old school, like steel mill worker with his packing his lunch pail ready to go?
Yeah, I'm going to use this. I've been told I can only use this every once in a while, but he is a yinzer, man.
He is a yinzer.
You can't use it. And Bednar and Donnie Kelly tell me that all the time, although Bednar says that Donnie's a fake yinzer, so it doesn't matter. But he is a yinzer, man. Like the other day, he'd thrown 2 days in a row. We're playing 11:35, and he walks in my office at like 8:30. He's like, "I'm good." I'm like, "You haven't thrown yet. You can't be good." So, and then he comes back in. But that's the way he is, and he gets after it. He takes care of his body. It's really fun to see because I think Bednar's a perfect example of our bullpen this year. He's a guy that started last year pitching in the 6th and the 7th. And pitched his way into leverage. And honestly, I believe he's one of the elite closers in the game right now. 3-pitch mix goes right after you. I think what we've seen of our bullpen this year, and it's a credit to our pitching group, is we came into spring training and said, we're going to go after you and we're going to throw strikes. If we get beat in the zone, we get beat. And we've seen these guys develop, even at the end of spring training, they weren't there. But as they've gone through the season, we're seeing them start to develop into roles that they're able to handle leverage. I mean, Johan Ramirez is a guy that started pitching in the fifth. He started in Indy and then was pitching the fifth and sixth inning. He pitched the eighth the other day of a game we won 2-1. So the fact that they've taken to the messaging, the organizational messaging of staying in attack mode, is really what's highlighted why they've been able to do what they've been able to do.
Yeah, it's impressive, man. It's fun to watch, and it's fun to watch you put these guys in the roles that they're perfectly fit in when the starters get the length that they got. Did you expect to get this much production from Marcano there at short? I mean, with O'Neill Cruz going down, you know, I think everyone's like, the Pirates are in trouble, and then bam, here we are in first place in June, and Marcano there at short has really been swinging the bat well. You know, did you expect this from him offensively?
Well, offensively, we knew he could hit right-handed pitching. We knew that he would give you a good at-bat. We knew he could handle the bat. I mean, this kid is – you want to talk about old-school baseball player? This kid is an old-school baseball player. Yeah. I mean, he was raised by a father that's a Venezuelan Winter League legend. He knows how to play the game. I mean, you see the tag he made last night on the Hedges play, just the awareness there. The one thing about shortstop that I was very confident was, and I got this from a guy you used to play for and is a fellow Pittsburgh person now, Leland asked me one time about Johnny Peralta. When we had Johnny Peralta in Cleveland and I was in Tampa, and he asked me when they had moved Johnny to third in Cleveland and they were talking about trading for him. And he said, can he catch the ball? And I said, if they hit the ball to him, they'll catch it. And he's like, he can play shortstop for me then. And it really was a strong lesson for me. Like 15 years ago, I was a hitting coach and Leland said this to me, if he can play shortstop and he can catch the ball and throw it across, I'm fine. That's what I want. That's what Tuke does. If you hit it to him, he's going to catch it. He may not make the flashy in the whole play or do, you know, but if you hit it to him, you're going to be out. And I think that was a lesson very much learned by a young hitting coach a lot of years ago.
I love that, man. I love that. You know, you talk about Leland because he's one of the biggest influences in my career. Still talk to him. I talk to him every couple of weeks. He tells me a new joke every time. Jim Leland has told me 1,000 jokes. I'm sure the same with you over the last 20 years and never told me the same joke. So, you know, it's incredible how he does that. But he's one of my, you know, biggest influences in my career. For you, Shelty, being here in the manager's seat and, you know, that calm presence that you always seem to have with riding the ups and downs, who have been the influences for you, man, that you kind of take when you might make a decision to go, oh, that's so-and-so, that was influence there?
Yeah, I think well, you know, obviously my dad, just because he was a high school coach and a lot. Mark Newman, who ran the Yankees farm system for a long time and unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago, was like that for me. And then as I've been fortunate as I've gotten into the game longer. I mean, Mark Shapiro, who's close to both of us, has always been a person that I've trusted. And I've been fortunate since I've been here that, you know, Leland has been that guy for me. And it's funny. I'll give you a Leland story. So I get the job here and for like 2 or 3 days, I keep getting these calls from these Detroit numbers and I don't answer it. And finally I'm at dinner one night. I don't think I've ever told this story. No. I'm at dinner one night. I may have had a glass of bourbon or two and it comes again. And I'm like, I'm going to answer this call. And legitimately, he's like, Derek, Jim Leland. And I'm like, oh, stood up straight, you know, right away. I'm like, attention. Oh, I'm at attention, you know. And he's like, hey, you're coming into town for your press conference. Let's go to breakfast. And 2 days before I was announced, he and I went to breakfast. And we have maintained that. You know, he'll text me every once in a while. I'll call him. You know, sometimes Rabs and Donnie are with us. Sometimes Oscar's with us. Sometimes it's just the two of us. But he is really a person to lean on because, you know, he went through lean years here and he's supportive. Yeah. And he also gives me very, very blunt advice, whether I want it or not. But I'm also able to ask him questions back about how to handle situations with players or staffs or anything. And I'm so fortunate because he knows Pittsburgh and he knows the people here and he knows the fans and he knows all those things. So the fact that he's invested in taking the time with me means more than anything to me.
That's incredible, man. You're right, man. He still lives here in Pittsburgh, but he's a Pittsburgher and like very well respected. What a resource for you, man. What an incredible resource. But Shelty, dude, Can't thank you enough. I know you got a lot going on as a big league manager. I can't thank you enough for coming on with Chinch and I today, and just reminiscing of what you guys are doing well, and hopefully maybe in a couple months we could do it again when the Buccos are in first place down the stretch and Charrington's looking to make a move for you guys. So best of luck to you, brother. Really appreciate the time, man.
I love that. Thanks for having me on. PJ's on tour.
Well, Hey, let's go, bro.
I know.
We'll hit him up. We'll find some tickets. We know some guys that can get us some tickets. We'll make sure of that.
All right. Thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it.
All right, Shelty. Talk to you soon, brother.
Dude, this is what I'm talking about, man. You told me how great of a human being this guy is. Now, if you weren't rooting for the Pirates before, root for them now. When a manager and the grown-up and the teacher in a room or the principal in a room is that cool, you can see it makes perfect sense how they're playing with the mix of the veterans, like we talked about there. Oh man, my new favorite, my new team that I'm rooting for all year long.
Yeah, isn't that awesome, dude? Yes. Hey, listen, at the end of the day, that manager in the dugout, that matters. Especially the way Shelty is, his demeanor. Listen, man, this guy could be the nice guy in the world, but this guy will jump you in a heartbeat. It'll jump an umpire. He'll stick up for his players. Like. Those guys know it too. And, Shelty and I go back a long, long time. Always knew this guy would be a manager at some point, was the bench coach for the Twins a couple years ago. And like I said, one of the best hitting coaches for years with the Indians and Rays. Great to see him getting a shot here in Pittsburgh. Not an easy job to take when he took it in 2020. Hey. COVID, his first year, not a great team.
Yeah.
And
hey, props to the organization for keeping him, because when we were reading and doing research, I'm like, they were X and 300 under him. Like the numbers weren't there, but they obviously saw something in him. And I read a lot about like when they signed him and why they signed him from the brass. And they were patient. They realized you're not just looking at the statistics, you're looking at the human being. And clearly that's been resonating. And great job to the Pirates organization for keeping him there. And I wish nothing but the best for him and the McCutchens and the Santanas and the Rich Hills. Go get them. And you kids, listen to them. Let's go make the playoffs this year.
Yeah, I hope so, dude. And a lot of the guys, bringing Ben Charrington in, this guy's won a world title with the Red Sox, was the player development with the Blues. This guy's been around the block, Indians, all that stuff. He's a great guy in that front office. Shelty being there with Donnie Kelly as the bench coach, with Mike Ribello as the third base coach, a lot of their coaching staffs, Andy Haynes, these guys, they've done a good job of hiring, and they're mixing and matching well with the Rich Hills and the Cutchins, Santanas, the veteran guys with the young guys. That's how you slowly win ball games and go, man, we got something going here. So Pirates are doing it right, man, with the payroll they have. Bob Nutting bringing in the right guys too. Reynolds getting signed too. So great stuff by Derek Shelton there. The first place Pittsburgh Pirates sitting here. What is it? June 6th, 2023. Let's see how the year ends up going. But Chinchy, you're the best, dude. Love you tons. And everybody out there listening, please appreciate you tuning in every day. And we'll see you guys tomorrow.